Hey guys, welcome to Living the Logic. This is Manish Narayan. Today I'm going to show you how to build .NET 8 microservices using a clean architecture template. Now, a lot of my friends and former colleagues, wanted to know how to make real-world microservices in .NET 8 that take advantage of clean architecture, separation of concerns, where they can easily integrate RabbitMQ, different message buses, and instead of starting from scratch, I kind of showed them how to use a clean architecture template. I'm going to show you how to run that on your local machine, and you'll have a microservice or many microservices up and running in no time. So let's get started. First thing you want to do is download .NET 8. You can head over to .NETMicrosoft.com. You can download the latest .NET 8 SDK. So again, depending on your operating system, I'm using a Windows x64. So basically, you just download that and install it. Now for your IDE, again, it's up to you. You can use Visual Studio Code. You can install that as well. If you're more familiar with Visual Studio, the full IDE, you can get the free community edition. That's Visual Studio 2022. Okay, so I downloaded both of them, installed both of them. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to use Visual Studio Code and the command prompt here to run the microservices using a clean architecture template. All right, so once you have .NET 8 SDK installed and you've installed your favorite IDE, Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio 2022, the next step would be to open a command prompt. Okay. Now, I usually keep all my projects under C drive, C:\development. Again, it's up to you. You might have like C drive source repos or C dev. Again, it's your choice. I'm going to go ahead and run everything under C:\development. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a new folder or a new directory for my new microservice. All right. So in this case, I'll make a directory under C:\development. So mk make directory, and we'll call this to do microservice. Okay. To do microservice. So create this directory. So I'll cd into to do microservice. Okay. Notice it's an empty directory. Okay. Now the next thing you want to do is install. You want to install the templates, the clean architecture templates, right? So let me show you how that works. We'll go ahead and install it. So you're going to run .NET new install clean.architecture.solution.template, and the .NET 8 version is 8.0.6. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. I already have it installed, but once you guys run it, you'll see that the templates will be installed. Now, in the to-do microservice, it's very easy to create your microservice using this template. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So basically, what you're going to do is you can enter. 1 second. Let me just go back to the command. Here we go. So let's just say I'm going to create a .NET new solution. Okay, this a CA solution. That's actually the template name that's going to be used. That's the one you installed, right? The clean architecture solution. The client framework, I'm going to have just a web API. There's going to be no front end to this. So I'm going to say -cf none for the client framework. Okay, and then the output or the folder or the solution name is going to be to do microservice. So we'll just call it to do .microservice. Okay, so to do .microservice. I'm going to hit enter there. Okay, and notice it said the template clean architecture solution was created successfully. And if I run a dir here, you'll see I have a new folder called to do .microservice. Okay, and if I head in there, you're going to see all the files are generated. All right, so let's go ahead and open the folder inside Visual Studio Code. So what I'm going to do is open up Visual Studio Code. Okay, I'm going to go to File, Open Folder, and I'm going to go to this PC, C drive, Development, and you're going to see the to-do microservice. So you can actually open up the entire to-do microservice folder. So I'm going to select folder. Okay. So notice in the folder you get out of the template, out of the box, you get your source code. Notice it's following a clean architecture. It's a to-do microservice solution. You have your solution file here. You have your source code broken down into application layer, domain layer, infrastructure layer, and web layer. Okay. It also comes shipped with tests for all your different layers. So that's a nice to have. Again, notice that I didn't have to build all this from scratch, right? It would take time. You can, feel free. But if you want a quick and dirty microservice that's ready to be deployed, ready to be set up with your CI/CD, has a testing framework that's backing it. Again, feel free to use these templates. It's nice to have if you're at work. You want to spin up a bunch of new microservices that can talk to each other through, let's say, RabbitMQ or some sort of messaging system. Then this is a quick and dirty way to get it up. All right, so now that we have our to-do microservice, the first thing we're going to do is open up a terminal. So I'm going to click on View Terminal in Visual Studio Code. Okay, and here under to-do microservice, I'm going to head over to, I'm going to click on dir, and you're going to head over to the source folder. So let's go to cd source, and then dir, and then go into the web folder. Okay, and you'll have the source web folder. Now, this solution here, this microservice, is going to talk to SQL Server. So you want to make sure you have SQL Server installed. Okay. Again, you can download the free developer version of SQL Server. Again, you can Google that. If you need any help, just message me. If you're having trouble installing SQL Server, you'll also need SQL Server Management Studio. This is what I have open. Okay. Once you have SQL Server installed, then you're all set to go. All right. So before we run the web API using .NET Run, remember it's going to apply the migration right to your database and create the new to-do microservice database. So you got to make sure your connection string is correct. So what we're going to do is head over to the source web folder, which is a web API. Open up app-settings.json. Just make sure your server name is matching your local SQL Server instance. Okay, and make sure the database, by default, it will be set to to-do.microservice.db, which kind of matches the to-do.microservice solution name that we created. All right, so if everything looks good there in terms of your connection string, I can go ahead and run .NET Run. Okay, oh, let me escape this. I'll say .NET space run. So once I do that, it's going to apply the migrations, create the database for me in SQL Server, generate all the schema, the tables, and so on, with some dummy data in there. And once that's done, if everything looks good, then it will actually start listening on localhost 5000 port 5001. So your microservice is ready to go. Okay. If you navigate over to your database, you should, and you refresh it, you should see the new to-do microservice DB. Okay, so it created a set of tables. These are the identity tables it created, as well as the to-do items and to-do lists. Okay, so for example, you can select all the to-do items here. It comes by default with a list ID 1, and it has 4 to-do items in there. okay, with certain priorities, and there are other columns by default. Also, there's a to-do list. Okay, in this case, we have one to-do list. So again, this is a foreign key in the to-do items table. So notice we have our database all set up for our microservice. Again, you can create many microservices and they'll each have or talk to their own database. Okay, that's the point of a microservice. So now if I head back over to my Visual Studio, everything's running, the API is running locally. I'm going to head over and navigate to localhost 5001. Beautiful, I see the Swagger for my to-do microservice API. All right, and it's protected. It's authentic. It has a authentication behind it. All right. So notice I get my to-do items, to-do list, users, weather forecast. These are the default actions or routes inside of the web API, right? So you have to-do items, to-do lists, users, weather forecast. All right. Now, if you try to execute one of them, let's see if we want to get to-do items. You can try it out here. Click on execute. Okay, it's requiring a list ID, so we know that's 1. Let's call it page number 1 and page size 10. Click on execute. And let's see what happens. Oh, we get a 401, so that means unauthorized. So notice here we can authorize by entering a bearer token. Okay, let me show you how to get that. So if you head over to the web project and you scroll down, you'll see a web.http file. Okay, you'll see a post method for users login. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on send request here. Okay, and notice I get a access token, bearer token. So I'm going to copy that access token. Control C. Head back over to my localhost 5001 to-do microservice API. Click on authorize. Make sure you enter bearer and then paste in the token. Click on authorize. Perfect. Now we're authorized, so we'll close this window. Now if I hit execute on the to-do items get endpoint, I should see my entire list that's in the database. That's beautiful, right? So I have 4 to-do items here. Again, you feel free to test out the other endpoints. You can create a new to-do item. You can try it out here. Let's say it's part of list ID 1, and the title is Manish Narayan new to-do item. Okay, and we'll click on execute, and we get a 200 back, right? So means it was successful. So if I head back over to my get endpoint, I should see 5 now. Okay, let's see if it's in there. There it is. There's a new one. Manish Narayan new to-do item. You look at the database, you should see another entry there. Beautiful. All right. It's perfect. If I head back over to the API, so let's go ahead and collapse these guys. So we ran the get, the post. You can update a to-do item based on ID, delete it. Okay, update the details. All right. If you run the get to-do list, you can see that we have one list, right? So you should get back one list here. There it is right there. And it contains the 5 items. Okay. So notice how you're already up and running with a microservice that's connected to the backend. It's set up in a way that follows clean architecture. Again, you can see that you have a web call, right? You have endpoints, to-do items. You have a get to-do items with pagination. It's using different technologies, by the way, behind the scenes. All right. So the technologies that are provided out of the box in the template, you get ASP.NET Core 8. Okay. You get Entity Framework Core 8. You have, again, the templates do come with a front end. If you do decide to use the front end for the templates, which we didn't in this one, we only had the web API. You do get Angular 17 or React 18. You can specify that in the templates. You do get Mediate R, so you get that for internal service communication. You get AutoMapper, right? Fluent validation, and then we can run the tests as well. You get all the tests suite at your different layers are being tested: application layer, domain, infrastructure. using NUnit, fluent assertions, mock, and respawn. Okay, so again, you get a lot of technologies out of the box, which is nice. All right, and if you wanted to head over to, for example, the project file. So, for example, the WebCS project, you'll notice that you get all the ASP.core, you get all the NSWAG, the Swagger, Fluent validation. You get a lot of stuff out of the box when you run these templates. All right. Now, what's nice is, for example, the web project. Let me just break down the clean architecture for a second. So under the source folder, you have your application layer. All right. So you have a common folder. You get your behaviors, right? So your logging, for example, your logging behavior. You get validation behavior. You get exceptions. All right. So you get default exceptions. Again, feel free to create your own. You can again. If you decide to rename some of these, you don't want the to-do. Remember, this to-do comes out of the box. You could change all of your objects to match your microservice. You might have like a booking service or a flight service or a pizza ordering service. Whatever the microservice is and its business objective, you can kind of start with a template, have everything up and running, which is nice. You don't have to build it from scratch. And then you can start to refactor and rename some of the different behaviors, some of the domain objects. So under application, for example, to-do items, it comes with commands. All right. You'll see a create to-do item command. All right. This is using the mediate R pattern. All right. So you have the commands, you have your queries. So the CQRS, command query responsibility segregation. Right. So you have your commands and queries. And then you also have event handlers. Okay. Again, all this is out of the box, which is nice, right? So, for example, if I went to create to-do item command, right? You'll see that everything's going to be handled out of the box, all right? Which is nice. Okay. Again, feel free to modify this to your business objective, all right, or your use case. So you get commands, event handlers under to-do items. Same goes for to-do lists. You have commands and queries. Okay, and then by default you'll get a weather forecast in there as well. One of the application domain objects, you'll get weather forecast, which comes with just the queries. Get weather forecast queries. Okay, so again, you get this out of the box. This is just like generating random weather summaries, right? So you get that to play with. Then your domain layer, you have your common, your base domain objects, for example, base entity. So your common entities like to-do item entities, they will inherit or extend from base entity. You get a base event object, right? So that's under common. You get a bunch of constants here, some policies and roles. Okay, again, feel free to add or subtract. Your base entities here in your domain layer, you have the to-do item. That's what we saw when we ran the get to-do items. All right, and then you have the to-do list. So those are the two domain entities. Okay, you do have some enums in there. That's priority level for some of the domain entities. Okay, so if you go to priority level here, that's an enum part of the to-do item. And then you have events in here. So again, you can integrate this with RabbitMQ, and I'll probably show you in the future videos how to do that. But you have, like, for example, a to-do item completed. For example, to-do item created event. Okay, it extends base event here. And then you have the exceptions, domain exceptions, all right? Again, feel free to add or subtract here. Okay, that's basically the domain layer, right? So we cover the application layer, the domain layer. Then you have your infrastructure layer, right? So this is where your data sits. Okay, so we have our application DB context, right? So we have our DB sets for to-do list, to-do item. Okay, and again, this is using the Entity Framework core. Okay, core 8 in this case. And then you have configurations under data, right? So you have a to-do item configuration, to-do list, entity type configuration, right? You have interceptors that come out of the box. And these are the initial migrations. Okay, so that's the data folder under infrastructure. It does come shipped with identity. Okay, notice you have application user that is using Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.identity. And then you have identity service there built in. So you have a service under identity. Remember that falls under your infrastructure layer. So you have your, out of the box identity, which is nice to have. You don't have to build out a whole security identity service there. And then the infrastructure also holds a dependency injection. So notice this add infrastructure services adds, all the interceptors, your DB contexts, your any sort of authentication bearer token schemes, right? You get, your identity service added as a service here at transient service. Okay, and you have your policies, authorization policies. So this, again, this dependency injection. Notice if I have a reference here, it's used under program CS in the web project, and I'll show you that when we get to the web project. Okay, so again, you have application, domain, infrastructure. That's all separation of concern. That's under your source folder. Comes out of the box, which is nice. Finally, your web API. You have an endpoints folder. So we have different endpoints, as I showed you when we navigate to a localhost port 5001. You have a to-do items endpoint, right? This comes out of the box. You have your basic CRUD operations here. Notice it is using mediate R, all right, and it's using a mediate R to it has an iSender basically, a mediate R iSender interface, and it uses send to send the query or command here. Okay, you have a to-do list endpoint, users endpoint, weather forecast endpoint. Okay, under the web you also have infrastructure, so you have different exception handlers. All right, for example here. You have some not found exceptions, some custom exceptions, all right? So you can handle some infrastructure plumbing there. There's no pages here, it's just by default. So web API, we just have an API here. You have services, you have a current user service here, okay? So that's basically it for the web API. Again, straightforward. Again, it's dependent on, the other layers here. You have your app settings, all right? And your program CS, that's important, right? So program CS, notice, adds the application services, okay? So if I head over to the implementation, you'll see this guy add application services, or adds automapper, mediate R, okay? So you get the application services there. If I head back over to the program CS, you get the infrastructure services, right? Okay, you have the web services, and then your default out of the box web API defaults for that are part of your app builder, right? So again, it's all out of the box. It's nice, everything's set up for you and ready to go, right? So we just had to run .NET Run, and it's live. Your microservice is live, which is pretty cool. Again, you have your testing folder. Feel free to run that as well. You can see all the tests, all your unit tests and functional tests, integration tests run for the various layers, which is nice. Okay, so again, thanks for watching. This is how to set up a quick and dirty microservice. You can set up, let's say 3 or 4 different microservices that talk to each other, talk to, say, some sort of messaging, AWS, Azure, RabbitMQ, and so on. And I hope to extend this further, and I'll see you in the next set of videos. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks. Hey guys, if you found the video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content. See you next time.